Okay, let's get started. Today I am going to show you guys what I showed you last week in our tutorial, and I'm going to focus in on a couple points, being how to make isometric. So I'm going to show you guys how to set the camera to parallel, how to place the camera and set the target, or place camera and target, and then once we have the view, the isometric view set, I'll show you how to name it, how to save it, how to revert to it when we go to make 2D. And that will be the next thing I want to show you guys is how to make 2D, the importance of layer organization. So we'll go ahead and come up with a layer system in order to uh, assign line weights more easily in Illustrator. And I will show you how to create a custom grid and then how to export selected. So we'll export our 2D line work to Illustrator. And finally, we will work in Illustrator briefly to assign line weights. Okay, so let's get started. You guys have all seen this, this file. It has some basic book, a basic book 3D model, and then a series of operations that are done on that book. Of course, you guys are going to be all using your own books. And then I have a couple of books that have been booleaned away in order to expose the section that I want to make 2D from. And then I have a couple of layouts here. And I've been noticing that quite a few of you are not laying out your drawings in Rhino, that you're trying to do that in Illustrator. And I actually find that to be much more difficult. And so I like to do as much of the drawing and kind of layout as I can in Rhino, and that's what we'll be showing you here today. So first of all, I'm going to talk about setting the view, and we're going to make a quick we're going to set up the view so that we can view this model in isometric. So the first step, there's 3 steps. The first step is going down to set to viewport properties and setting our projection to parallel. Remember, one of the attributes of a isometric drawing is that all lines that are parallel in the object remain parallel in the view. So that we've done that, I can go ahead and exit out of here. So now I have my parallel projection, and it looks a little strange at first on the screen, but your eyes will get used to it. Next, if you haven't already done so, I'll go ahead and delete mine. I'd like you to make a little view cube, and that's simply so that we can place the camera and the target. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to create a box, corner to corner plus height. I have a 1-inch grid set up, so I'm just going to go ahead and my grid snaps are also on, and I'm going to go ahead and go from corner to corner and then give it 1 inch in height. Okay. And again, I'm using a Mac, but my object snaps are here and my grid snap is here, so I can disable and enable that. And I also have orthographic, my ortho is on, and my gumball is also on, so I can kind of quickly move this guy around if I want to in 1-inch increments. Great. So once you have that done, I like to just draw a line in the direction that I'm going to view my book in, and I want this this view here. So I'm going to use either my line or my polyline command, and I'm just going to draw a line from corner to corner. And I remember I have my end snaps set, so I can quickly draw that line. And then if I delete my box, I have my line that's going to help me set up my view. Now if I turn that line into a dot, that's roughly the view I'm going to be going for to get my isometric. So that was the second step, setting up your kind of scaffolding for the view. The third step is to go back, so I'm going to right click on my viewport tag up here, and I'm going to go down to set camera, place camera, and target. And first I'm going to place the camera, then I'm going to place my target. So this is like setting where my eye is going to sit and then which direction I'm going to look in. Okay, great. So now I have this all set up, and one thing I want to do is make sure that now that I have this view, I'm just going to select that geometry there, and then I'm going to do a Z for zoom, enter, and then S, enter for zoom selected, and I'll have that nice and big there. Now I can go ahead and deselect that, and I can go back into my right click again up here and go to my I want to go to my views, so set view, and show my named views panel. Now this is where I can set up all my views. I can go ahead and delete these guys here and set up a single view of my current view, and I'm going to call it ISO for isometric, and then I'll have that saved. So what that will allow me to do is if I accidentally kind of move this around and lose my view, all I have to do is go up here and double click on my isometric view, and I have that all set up. Okay. All right, so that is, let's see, so we've got, those are the 3 steps for setting up your isometric view. We went ahead and showed you how to set the view, how to save it, how to name it, and how to revert to that view. I showed you that the kind of keys for setting up the isometric is to set the camera to parallel, place the camera in target, and to also to set up your kind of viewing scaffolding. Okay, so next we're going to go ahead and use our make2d command. Just get going with that. So the first step here is to select all the geometry that you want to make 2D of, and then simply say make 2D. This this little dialog box will will be visible, and you may or may not want to make 2D of hidden lines. We'll go ahead and do that, and then you can also select this option to maintain source layers. And of course we want it of the current view, and you can kind of disregard this stuff down here. I'm going to say OK. Now once that has made 2D, you will always find it in the top view at the origin. Okay, remember the origin being x-axis, y-axis, 0, 0, and within the positive quadrant, right? So this is the positive quadrant here. So I'm just going to pull this over and go ahead and we can actually, rather than pulling it over, I'm going to bring it over using the grid. So I'm going to turn my gumball off, and I'm just going to type in M for move, and I'm going to use my grid because I kind of have my book laid out on the grid here, and I'm just going to bring it over like so. Now if you notice, this is I already had that kind of made 2D, so I can delete that old one, move this one into position, and what I want to show you here, this is 11 by 17 bounding box, and what I wanted to show you here is that this is the isometric view that's been made 2D, and this is the same line work that has been assigned layers by line weight, and it also has had some poche added to it as well. And that's the kind of next step we're gonna talk about, layer organization. Before I forget though, let's go ahead and talk about the grid really quick. For my book, I think I had a 4-inch 4x6 book, not based on a real book, just for convenience. But I opened up, if you type in grid, enter, you can go ahead and set your snap spacing. Right now I have mine set to 1 inch, and my minor line spacing at 1 inch, and my major line interval at 8 inches. So that's the 1 inch minor, 8 inch major, and I can use that major interval in order to move my objects around more cleanly rather than just arbitrarily dragging them in space. And that allows me to maintain um, uh, the ability to collapse or expand my drawings as I need to. I always can use that major grid. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and escape out of my grid dialog box, and let's go back. And now I want to talk about layers. So really quickly, I have quite a few layers here. There is nested layers, right? So I have my 3D layers here. I only have kind of 2 sub layers, my cover and my bulk, and that's all my 3D modeling layers. It's just very simple. And then under my 2D layers, I have all these sub layers, and those are going to be the layers that are exported to Illustrator. And in Illustrator, I can use those layer names to go ahead and assign line weights to. And we automatically know that poche is the heaviest, and my kind of light or hidden lines would be some of the lighter lines. Okay, and then I also have a couple of others like cut, text, and page, right? So we have our page here. These layers here are made by Rhino when using the make2d command, and we can kind of disregard those. Those are just kind of a setup that we will then pull all the information into our own layer organization system. Okay, so once you've kind of defined your layer hierarchy, then it's a matter of going into your drawing and assigning line weights, right? So for example, let's work on this drawing a little bit. You can use the same techniques for your orthographic views. Here I have a plan in 2 sections. Here's my isometric. We're just going to work on this one and get it close to this. We may not take all the time to get it fully there in order to keep this video relatively brief. So first of all, this isn't just what you see is what you get. So I'm going to go ahead and be a little bit, first of all, I'm going to figure out what the cut layer is, or what my cut line is, and I'm going to select those lines, and I'm going to use a couple of simple commands, and one of them being join. So I'm going to join that layer, and that layer is going to go to my profile or cut. So we can go ahead and drag this. Let's go ahead and drag that up near the profile, because I know that my cut lines are going to be I know that my cut lines are going to be I'm going to save that swatch there. You can see what I'm doing here, and then I'm going to replace it with that. So I'm just kind of setting up a color scheme for my layers in order to understand what line weights they are. Usually I will do a kind of a monochrome scheme. Here I have kind of pinks and purples, and the darker the color, the heavier the line weight. Okay, so here is my cut and my profile. I'm going to move this over to my cut layer, and move object to this layer, and that's one cut. Here is my other cut line. Here, this is also should be a polyline, right? So I'm going to join that together, and I can see here on my properties that it's my object properties that's a closed curve now, and that means I can go ahead and hatch that curve, right, to show my poche. So now I'm also going to go ahead and send that to the cut layer. So making 2D is really quick, setting up your view is really quick, but getting in here and drawing and assign line work is a little bit more time consuming. Okay, so this, for example, this line right here, I need to use that as my profile line of the overall drawing, but I need to split this line. So I'm going to go ahead and type in the split command, select my object to split, right click, select the cutting object, click again. So now I have that split, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here, but I'm going to join those first, and I'm going to split this guy. And now I'm making myself a profile line based off of the make2d geometry, make2d line work. So I'm going to join that, add that to my profile, and I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to have to split a couple of lines here again. So I'm going to use the split command again. And I'm going to do the same thing with this. I can use my spacebar to repeat the previous command, remember? And so I split those. And I'm just going to grab all these lines and create the rest of my profile. So I'm going to set that over here, move objects to layer. So now I have kind of a profile line and my cut line set up. Let's go ahead and talk about hatching. Hatching is real basic here. I'm just going to type in hatch. I'm going to go ahead and select, oops. For some reason, what did I do? Oh, I locked my layer. I had my cut layer locked, so I wasn't able to select those lines. So now I can go ahead and hatch this, that line. And it's already set up to what I had it before, but the real key here is you can set your rotation. So I have it set at 45. You can see what a 0 looks like. That's a horizontal lines, so I'm going to set mine at 45. And then I have my pattern scale set at 0.2. Maybe I want to tighten that up again. I can go down to 0.1, and that's a nice tight hatch. I just have my hatches set here. You can always make sure you can load your hatch patterns if you don't have anything shown there. So I'm going to say OK. I'm going to set that to my poche layer. And now you can really see that cut is popping out there. I'm going to do the same thing here. And just hit the space bar to repeat the previous command. Say OK. And then I can send that to my poche layer. Okay. Now a couple more, couple other lines here. Now we can move into our heavy lines. So those would be what we call the spatial edges of the drawing, right? An edge that has space behind it. So I go ahead and choose a couple of those within the drawing. I'm going to join those, and I'm going to go send those to my spatial edge layer, or my heavy, for my heavy line weights. There's a couple more. There's one here, 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 here. Join those together. There's also one here and here. Join those. And then I will send those to my heavy layer. Okay, so I hope you see the workflow here. I'm just working my way through, and then eventually I'll get to this point, right? So here I have my heavy line work, which are my spatial edges, my medium line work, which are my edges, and which are a change in plane where you can see both of the faces. Then I have my light lines, which are a change in material but not a change in plane, so like between the book cover and the book, the meat of the book. And then I have some hidden lines, so I went ahead and I didn't use all the hidden lines that it gave me because I thought they were a little bit confusing, but I just took some of the key hidden lines there and added those to my drawing. So those are on the hidden line layer. Then I don't have any center lines. I don't have any text in here, but I could add text here if I wanted to. And then I have my page line set up. So take your time with this part. The more accurate you are here, the more organized you are here, the less work you'll have to do in Illustrator. And I really find kind of assigning line weights and stuff and organizing your line work in Illustrator to be a little bit cumbersome. So take your time, do it here in Rhino, and it'll really pay off in the long run. So I'm going to go ahead and export this now. That's kind of the next step. We're going to use the export selected command. I'm going to take everything that I want to export, which is just this lower drawing because we didn't finish assigning our line weights to layers here. And I'm going to go up to my file and say export selected. I'm going to save it as book iso.ai for Adobe Illustrator, and I'm going to say export, and then this is important. These are my export options, and we always want to preserve model scale when we're exporting to Illustrator. And this is simple for us on this project because we're working 1:1, 1 inch equals 1 inch. Great. RGB versus CMYK. I imagine we want to just use CMYK since we're going to be working in Illustrator, but I don't think this matters all that much. And we do not need to export our viewport boundary. And now I'm going to say export. And I'm going to go to Illustrator, File, Open. Here it is on the desktop, Book ISO. Open that up, and we don't see it. If you zoom out, we can see it's way off to the side here. So usually it's a good idea when you're exporting things in Rhino to export them closer to the origin, which is associated with the page within Illustrator. But this will work just fine. I'm just going to go ahead and grab all this, drag it over, and this is 11 by 17, so if we go ahead and change our page size using the page tool here, from letter to tabloid, the two should match up perfectly. Let's just double check that that's the case, and it looks like we did a good job there. So that's nice and clean how that transfers over. So I'm going to just go ahead and delete that profile there, and now I can really just focus. I don't have to move this thing around because it's kind of where I want it to be. And now I can just really focus on setting up the line weights for this drawing, which should be relatively easy because, here, let me just go ahead and get a little closer here. The only two palettes that we need in Illustrator using this method are the stroke palette and the layers palette. And you've noticed that we have all of our layers right here. That's they were maintained, which is great. So I'm going to select all, and I'm going to change my stroke to 0. I mean my stroke to black and my fill to no, so no fill, and that will change all my lines to black. And then I will hide the color there. Then I can start to go through and work my way through and set some line weights. So let's say I want my profile and my heavy lines to be, so I'm going to shift select all the information that's on those two, and then I can go up here and change that to, let's say, 1.5 point. Thicken those up a little bit, And then I can go to my profile lines, or sorry, my poche lines, and maybe I want to make those thinner. Okay, and we can zoom in here and start to see the effects, the changes. Then I want to go to my heavy lines, and I can make those, can make my heavy lines 1 point, make my medium lines 0.5, and you guys need to come up with your own technique or your own line weights. I suggested for you guys to go ahead and print out a sheet with many lines with a gradient of line weights so that you can start to assign them. I'm just going to set this up kind of off the top of my head right now. So the light lines are set those to 0.25. So again, that's the kind of change in material here within the poche, and then also within this area that had been booleaned out. And then I will set my hidden lines to 0.5, but I'll go ahead and give them a dash, and I'll just do a 2-point dash, or maybe I can do a 1-point dash, kind of a tight dash there. And oh, we forgot, for some reason the our poche didn't show up over here. See that? So we're going to have to go back into Rhino and figure out why that didn't show up, and then just pull it into the drawing. So let's take a quick look at how to do that, and then we'll call it good for this video. So let's go back to our Rhino. Let's take a look at that poche. So that poche is a hatch. So hatches don't export, so we're going to have to explode that. That was the problem. And that we've exploded that now into single lines. So now we can go ahead and select our poche, select objects, select our page. I'm going to deselect the poche that I don't want, so command swipe. And then now I have, if I zoom selected, I just have this area selected here. And I also didn't need this poche too, so I'm just going to command click that, zoom selected again, and now I can export select this. And that's the same process. I'm going to export selected, and I'm going to call this book poche patch. Export that. We're all good here. Export. Open up Illustrator. File. I'm going to open this up as a new file. My poche patch. Open that up. So now we have a new file here. And it's off again. It's off way over here off to the side. But I'm just going to pull that in place. And then zoom in so it looks good. I just have that one little area there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all, I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to go into my master page here, and I'm going to paste my information. But before I do that, I need to go into my layers and go to paste remembers layers. So I'm going to go right here and make sure that that is checked. Okay, and paste, and now I can use this frame to, I can go ahead and snap this to the page, and that will make sure that my hatch down here is in the correct place. So when we go ahead and we select our poche, we can make sure we can set that to 0.25, set this to black. Whoops. So I'm going to select the poche again. It was 1.5, so I'm going to set that to 0.2. Poche. Set to 1, so I set that to 0.25, and we're all good there. It looks like it was a little bit off. I can select those lines and move that, but that shouldn't be off. That was me making some kind of mistake. And I would have to re-import that to figure out why that did that. But for this video, I'm going to leave that as is, because I think I've covered enough. So once again, we went over how to make an isometric. Then we had how to set our views, how to save them, how to name them, revert to them. We went ahead and we talked a little bit about the make2d, how to do our layer organization, how to set up a grid, how to export selected, and then go ahead and bring into Illustrator and set up our line weights. So I hope this is helpful for you guys, and hopefully I will be able to make some more of these videos for you guys. Okay, thanks.